Hello and welcome to my video for my prediction paper for GCSE Maths Foundation Paper 1 for AQA for this summer. Before we begin, some general information. Firstly, I'd highly recommend that you download and try doing this paper before watching the walkthrough. I've put a link in the description so you can download it to try first. The paper perfectly covers the advanced topic list material released by AQA in February 2022. All of the questions are original and created by myself, so you won't find these questions in any other paper. And finally, there's no guarantee that questions will be asked exactly in this way, but this is excellent practice for your summer exams. This paper is non-calculator, remember, and I will be recording more walkthrough videos to other papers, so subscribe so you don't miss out on those uploads. Let's try the questions then. So for question 1, we have 12 take away -3. To do this, I draw a number line. Since we start at 12, put a cross at 12. Now if the question said 12 take 3, we'd go left 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, and end up at 9. But it doesn't say that, it says 12 take -3, so we go in the opposite direction. Remember, taking away a negative number is the same as adding. So instead, we go like this, which leaves us at 15. For this question, we need to compare two fractions, 1/3 and 1/4. If we draw a bar like this and split it into 3 equal pieces, each of those would represent 1/3. If we take the same size bar and split it into 4 equal pieces, each one of those bits will be a quarter. You can see if we shade in a third and a quarter, that 1/3 is actually bigger than 1/4. So it's the first one, 1/3 is greater than 1/4. To answer this question, we'll draw all 4 of these. An arc is when you take a circle and then take one piece of the outside of it, like this. A circumference is the whole of the outside of the circle. A chord is when you have a circle and you draw a line from one side to the other like this. And a sector is when you take a circle, take 2 radii, and then shade in the enclosed area. So a chord is the one that makes a straight line. For this question, we need to convert kilometers into meters. You should know that 1 kilometer is the same as 1,000 meters. Kilo means 1,000. So if we want 2.5 kilometers, we just need to times 1,000 by 2.5, which gives 2,500. So the answer is 2,500 meters. There are a few different ways to multiply these numbers together. I'm going to use long multiplication though. So I would write 34 times 29 like this. Then do 9 times 4, which is 36. 9 times 3, which is 27, and add the smaller 3 there, so 30. I then move on to the 2, but remember that 2 represents a 20, so I need to put a 0 holder down here. 2 times 4 is 8, and 2 times 3 is 6. I can then add up these numbers. 6 add 0 is 6, 0 add 8 is 8, and 3 add 6 is 9. So the answer is 986. Here we're going to add some numbers. So 15.9, then underneath that 4.23. Take particular care to make sure you line up the decimals vertically like this. Now we can add them. So after the 9 we'll put a 0. So it's 0 add 3, 3, 9 add 2, 11. Next decimal point, 5 add 4 add the little 1 makes 10, and then 1 add the little 1 makes 2. So the answer to this one is 20.13. For this question, we need to list all of the combinations. We're going to take one event from the first box, one from the middle box, and one from the last box. So we'll start with javelin, sprint, and high jump. The first one from each box. If we then change the high jump in the last box to a triple jump, we get javelin, sprint, triple jump. We've now done all of the combinations that start with javelin and sprint. So we'll change it to javelin and long distance. So javelin, long distance, high jump, javelin, long distance, triple jump. We've now done all of the combinations that start with javelin, so we'll move on to discus from the first box. So discus, sprint, high jump, discus, sprint, triple jump, discus, long distance, high jump, and discus, long distance, triple jump. And that's all your combinations. The next part of the question says what fraction of the possible combinations have discus and high jump. So we're looking for the ones that have a D and an H. So that's this one and this one. So there are 2 of those, and there are 8 altogether, so it's 2/8, which you could simplify to 1/4. This question is about order of operations, which you may call BIDMAS or BODMAS. We need to put some symbols in between these numbers to make it correct. We need to also be careful to make sure that the order of operations applies. So for instance, brackets comes first, then indices, then divide and multiply together, and then add and subtract together. So for this first one, I've come up with the answer 5 times 8 add 2 times 1. This works because 5 times 8 is 40, 2 times 1 is 2, and then you add those together at the end. 40 add 2 is 42. For the next one, there are two answers. You've got 5 take away 8 divide by 2 take 1. This works because 8 divided by 2 is 4. 5 take 4 take 1 is 0. You could also have found this one, 5 take 8, add 2, add 1, which gives 0 as well. For the last one, there are also two possibilities. You may have found 5 times 8, which is 40, and then take away 2, add 1, which gives you 39. And also this one, 5 add 8, multiplied by 2 add 1. 5 add 8 is 13, and 2 add 1 is 3, so 13 times 3 is 39. For this question, we're trying to find a missing angle in a triangle. You should know the angles in a triangle add up to 180. So if we add up the two angles we have, 70 add 80 makes 150, and then we'll take that away from 180, so 180 take 150 gives 30. So that's the answer to the question, 30 degrees. For the next part, we need to decide what type of triangle it is. Well, if we take 30 degrees and write it on the diagram, we can see the three angles. A right angle triangle would have an angle of 90 degrees, but there isn't one, so it can't be that. An isosceles triangle has two angles which are the same, so it can't be that. In an equilateral triangle, all of the angles are the same, so it can't be that. So it must be a scalene triangle. For this question, we're trying to work out the mean temperature. The mean of a list of numbers is add up all of the numbers in the list and divide by how many numbers there were. So 2 add 1 add 11 add 3 add negative 2 gives you 15, and then divide by 5 since there were 5 numbers, which gives you 3. So the answer is 3 degrees C. For the next part, we need to identify which one is an outlier. So if we look at the list of numbers here, an outlier is a number that's very far away from the rest of them. So 11 turns out to be the outlier in this question. Some people may think it's negative 2 because it's the only negative, but it's actually quite close to most of the numbers. The 11, however, is very far away. For this question, we have a rule for a sequence. It's multiply 3, then subtract 10. We know the first term is 4, and we're going to work out the next 3 terms. So start with 4, multiply it by 3, which gives you 12, and then take away 10. So 12 take away 10 is 2. So the next term is 2. We then take that 2, multiply it by 3, which gives 6, and then take away 10, which gives negative 4. So the next term is negative 4. We then take that negative 4, multiply it by 3, which is negative 12, and then take away 10, which is negative 22. And that's the final term. For this question, we're going to estimate the answer. We need to round each of the numbers in the question to one significant figure. So we'll start with 3.8. If you round that to one significant figure, you get 4. The next number, 2,304, rounds to 2,000, and the bottom number 19 would round to 20. So this is the calculation we need to do. 4 times 2,000 is 8,000, and we've still got 20 on the bottom. If we divide both of these by 10, we'll get 800 over 2, and 800 over 2 is just half of 800, which is 400. For this question, we're going to work out 35% of 240. To start this, I like to work out 10%. 10% of 240 is 24. Another 10% is another 24, and then another 10%, that's 24 again. If I now half 10%, I get 5%. So if I half 24, I get 12. So 5% is 12. I can now add all of these together. If I add the left-hand side, I get 35%, and if I add the right-hand side, I get 84. So 35% is 84. In this question, the ratio of green to red counters is 3 to 7. So imagine we had 3 green counters and 7 red counters. We then ask for the fraction of green. Well, there's 3 green and there's 10 altogether, so it's 3 over 10. Here we have a two-way table, and the first thing to do is try and complete this table. If we look down the football column here, we can see there were 85 Year 7s that chose football and 180 people altogether. So if we do 180 take 85, we'll get 95, which must be the Year 8s. If we do the same thing with the hockey column, 120 take 50 gets us 70, which must be the year 7s who chose hockey. So the table's now complete. For part B, it says what percentage of the students picked hockey. I find to write a percentage, it's easiest to start with a fraction. So what fraction picked hockey? Well, there were 120 who picked hockey out of 300 students altogether. To turn this into a percentage, we'll try and turn it into a fraction that's over 100. So if we divide the top and bottom by 3, we get 40 on the top and 100 on the bottom. And 40 over 100 just means 40%. So the answer is 40%. For part C, we're after the probability that we chose a year 7 who chose football. If we look at the diagram, we can see year 7s that chose football, there were 85 of those. So it's 85 over the total, which is 300. And since this is a probability question, we don't need to simplify our answer unless it tells us to. For this question, we're going to translate a trapezium. To translate a shape just means to move it, and we've been given a vector here. The top number is -3. That tells us we're going to move 3 left. The bottom number is 4. That says we're going to move 4 up. So first of all, trace the shape with some tracing paper like this, and then we'll move it in those directions. So we'll go 1, 2, 3 to the left, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 up. And that's where you draw your shape. For this question, we need to find the density of a solid. You should know the formula for density. Density is mass divided by volume. Fortunately, in the question, we've been given the mass and the volume. So all we need to do is substitute these into the formula. So the mass is 300, and divide that by the volume, which is 40. We can simplify this a little bit. Divide by 10 on top and bottom, and you'll get 30 over 4. 30 divided by 4 just means half it and half it again. Half of 30 is 15, and half of that is 7.5. The question also has an extra mark though. It says include the units of your answer. The units of density will be made up from the units of mass and the units of volume. So it's grams per centimetre cubed because our mass was in grams and our volume was in centimetres cubed. For this question, I'd start by working out the perimeter of B. So add up all of the sides. So 4 add 4 add 5 add 5 add 7, which gives you 25. Now we know this is the same as the perimeter A because we're told in the question. So perimeter A is what we'll try next. Now A has 4 sides and we can only see 2 of them. But the top side must be same as the bottom side, so that's 8, and the one on the left must be the same as the one on the right, so that's x. So the perimeter of A is 8 add 8, add x add x. But we know that must add up to 25. So we've got an equation to solve. If we add the 8 and the 8 we get 16, and if we add the x and the x we get 2x. So the left hand side is 2x, add 16, which still equals 25. We can solve this by taking away 16 from both sides. If we take it away from the left, we get 2x. If we take it away from the right, 25 take 16 is 9. And if 2x is 9, we can divide 9 by 2 to get 4.5, which is the answer. For this question, we need to draw an equation of a line. Usually the easiest way to do this is draw a table of values for x and y. In the question, it tells us the x values. It says they go from -1 to 4. So we can just write those straight in. The equation of the line in the question is y equals 2x plus 1. So we need to take our x value, times it by 2, and then add 1. So let's start with x equals -1, times it by 2, and then add 1. That gives you -1. We can then move on to x equals 0, so do 2 lots of 0, then add 1, which gives you 1. We then move on to x equals 1, so 2 lots of 1, then add 1, which is 3. Then for x equals 2, it's 2 lots of 2 add 1, which is 5. For x equals 3, 2 lots of 3 add 1 is 7. And for x is 4, 2 lots of 4 add 1 is 9. We can then plot each of these as coordinates. So first of all, -1 with -1, which goes here. And then 0 with 1, which goes here. 1 with 3, here. 2 with 5, 3 with 7, and 4, 9. If you join all of these up with a ruler, it should make a straight line like this. For the last part, we're asked to solve this equation, but if you look carefully at these 2 parts here, they're the equations of our lines. In the question, you can see I've marked them in blue. So all we're after is where these 2 graphs intersect. You can see they intersect here, and then we look for the x coordinate since we're solving an equation in x. So go down and you can see that x is 1. For this question, we need to try and work out Megan's total bill for 3 months. First of all, notice the question says it's £10 per month, and since it's 3 months, we can do £10 times 3, which gives you £30. If we then look at the cost for text messages, in the table we're told she has 6, 10 and 8 text messages, so if we add all of those together, it makes 24 text messages. But these cost 10p, so 24 lots of 10p is £2.40, so that's the cost of the text messages. Now for the calls. Calls cost 2p per minute, and in the table it tells us she has 40 minutes, 35 minutes, and 15 minutes. So if we add those together, she has 90 minutes of calls. 90 minutes of calls costing 2p each is 90 times 2p, which is £1.80. So altogether she has £30, £2.40, and £1.80. So we'll add all of these up, and you'll get the answer, which comes out as £34.20. For this question, we have an electrician that charges a call-out fee of £20, and then it's £12 per hour worked. We need to write a formula down for cost, so we'll start with C equals for cost equals. We know it's always £20 for a call-out fee, and then we need to add to that the amount of money for the hours worked. Now it's £12 per hours worked, and it tells us they work for H hours, so you times the number of hours by 12, so 12H. So we just add to this 12H. For the next question, we've got a plumber, but he charges twice the call-out fee, but half the hourly rate. So we'll start with the same formula again. We can have cost equals, but we need to double the call-out fee. So rather than 20, it's now 40. And we need to half the hourly rate, so since it was 12H before, it's now 6H, since that's half. For this question, we're going to start with the bracket squared. When you square something, you times it by itself, so this is just 2/3 times 2/3. To times these, times the 2 times 2 on the top, which gives you 4, and times 3 times 3 on the bottom, which is 9. So the question could be written as 4/9 add a quarter. To add these together, we need to find a common denominator. The lowest common multiple of 9 and 4 is 36. So we need to convert these to something out of 36. For the first fraction, 4/9, to get from 9 to 36 you times by 4, so times 4 by 4 on the top gets you 16. For the second fraction, to get from 4 to 36 you times by 9, so 1 times 9 is 9. We can now just add the numerators, 16 add 9 gives you 25, so it's 25 over 36. For this question, we'll first of all write 2 to the 20, but then deal with the last part. The last part is a bracket to a power, so we need to use the bracket to a power law. This states that when you have a bracket raised to another power, you just multiply the indices. So we've got 3 and 4, so we multiply them. So this is the same as 2 to the 12. We now have the division law. The division law says that when you have the same base, you can subtract the indices. So 20 take 12 is 8. So the answer to this question is 2 to the 8. For this question, we need to write this number in standard form. Standard form starts with a number from 1 to 10, so for this one it would be 4.2. We're then going to times this by a power of 10. You should notice that because this number is quite a small number, we'll need a negative power. So start with 4.2 and we'll see how many places that decimal point would move. It's 1, 2, 3 places. So the answer to this is 10 to the negative 3. We can start this question by multiplying the numbers at the front, so 4 times 3, which gives 12. We can then multiply the powers of 10, but remember the multiplication law says we add the indices, so 3 add 5 is 8, so this is 10 to the 8. This number is not in standard form though, and the question asks for it in standard form. So if we divide 12 by 10, we'll get 1.2, but since we've divided this number by 10, we need to times this number by 10 to keep things balanced. 10 to the 8 times another 10 is 10 to the 9. This number is now in standard form. For this question, we need to solve an equation. We're going to deal with this plus 9 here first. To do that, you subtract 9 from both sides. If we subtract it from the left, then it cancels out, so we're left with x over 4. If we subtract it from the right, 3 take 9 gives negative 6. The next thing to deal with is this divide 4 on the bottom. The inverse of dividing 4 is multiply 4, so we multiply 4 on both sides. On the left we'd end up with x, and on the right negative 6 times 4 is negative 24, and that's the answer to the question. For this question we need to simplify a ratio, but the numbers in the question have different units, one is in pounds and one is in pence, so we convert the £3.60 into 360 pence, so it's 360 to 80. We can simplify this ratio by dividing by 40 on both sides. Dividing 40 on the left gives 9, dividing 40 on the right gives 2, and that's your answer. For this question you'll need a pair of compasses and a ruler. We have two bits of information to help us find the region R. We're going to actually start with the second bit, the bit where it says we're closer to point C than to point D. If you're closer to point C than point D, you need to construct the perpendicular bisector of line CD. To do this, place your compass point at C. Draw yourself an arc which is over half of the length of the line, something like this. Then without changing your compass size, place the point at D and draw another arc, something like this. If you then connect up the intersection points with a straight line, you'll get something like this. We can now see the region above the line that's closer to C than it is to D. Remember, don't rub out your construction lines. We can now look at the other part of information, which says we're less than 5.5 centimeters from E. To do this, set your compasses to 5.5 centimeters, then place your compass point at E and draw yourself an arc, something like this. So if we're within this arc, but also above the red line, we must be in this region R here, which you could shade in. For this question, we need to find the area of a sector. To do this, we're going to imagine first of all that it's not a sector, it's a whole circle. We'll use the formula for the area of a circle, which is pi r squared. The radius of this sector is 6, so it would be pi times 6 squared. 6 squared is 36, so that's 36 pi. Remember, in this question it said they want the answer in terms of pi, and we don't have a calculator. Now it's not a whole circle, it's actually 3/4 of a circle, so we need to find 3/4 of 36 pi. To do this, we divide it by 4, which gets 9 pi, and then times it by 3. So 9 pi times 3 gives 27 pi, and that's the answer to the question. For this question, we need to use the graph to calculate how many bacteria were in the sample after 5 hours. To do this, go to 5 hours on the x-axis and draw up until you hit the graph. Once you hit the graph, draw horizontally until you hit the other axis. We then need to read off this value. Now it's between 2 and 3, but the axis says they're in thousands, so it's actually between 2,000 and 3,000. Each big square represents 1,000, and it's split into 5 smaller squares, so the smaller squares are 200. So this is actually 2,800. What type of graph is shown here? Well, I'll show you all 4 types of graphs. An exponential graph looks like this, a reciprocal graph looks like this, a cubic graph like this, and a quadratic graph like this. So this one matches an exponential graph. For this Venn diagrams question, we'll first of all look at where it says 3/8 of students had brothers and sisters. Now there were 200 students overall, so we just need to find 3/8 of 200. To do this, take 200 and divide it by 8, which gives 25, and then take that 25 and times by 3, which gets 75. So there were 75 students that had brothers and sisters. This represents the middle part of the Venn diagram, the intersection, so we'll write 75 in there. We can then look at where it says, in total, 105 students had sisters. The circle representing sisters is marked here in green, so this circle must add up to 105. Now there's already a 75 in there, so if we do 105 take 75, we get 30, so this missing part must be 30. We can now look at this last bit of information. The number of students with brothers was 15 less than the number who had sisters. We know the number who had sisters was 105, so if we do 105 take 15, we get 90. This means the blue circle for brothers must add up to 90. Again, there's already a 75 in there though, so we do 90 take 75, which gets you 15. So this missing part is 15. Now it looks like we finished, but there's one more piece of information, the number of people that didn't have brothers or sisters. To do this, we add up all the numbers we've got so far, so 15, 75 and 30, which gets you 120. Since there were 200 students in the whole Venn diagram, we do 200, take 120, which leaves you with 80. So we write an 80 in the bottom corner here. And that's the question finished. I've added in some rough grade boundaries here so you can see how well you've done. Remember, grade boundaries do change every year, but this is a good rough estimate. Let me know in the comments what grade you get. Also, check out what I think you should watch next, and subscribe so you don't miss out on my next video.